Yeah.
We start you.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Sunbury City Council meeting. It is November 30th, 2022, 7:30 p.m. Would you please join me for a moment of silent prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance? Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Swain, roll call, please.
Mayor St. John,
Here.
Mr. Capel.
Here.
Mr. Ghost,
Here.
Mr. Knapp,
Here.
Mr. Grumney.
Here.
Mr. Martin,
Here.
Mrs. Cooper. Here. All present.
All right, we had a meeting on November 16th, 2022. Could I get a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion with the clerical error towards the new business area. Just my name is misspelled a couple times towards the very end.
Second by Councilman Martin. Motion was by Cindy Cooper. Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Knapp,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
7 years.
All right. We're on to the visitors section. Are there any visitors that would like to speak this evening? All right, if you can come up, we've got one behind you that I think is going to speak first. All right, if we could state your name, address, and let's try to keep it to 3 minutes, please.
Barry Bennett, 5401 Plantation Road. And the tremor in my voice is from the steps. Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for hearing what's going to be a heartfelt appeal against the proposed rezoning change on Granville across from my building on 130 Burr Drive. As you know, I own that building, which is zone plan industrial. I believe that would be a far better use for this land than rather than the zoning change that is being considered. My opinion, of course. We've all heard the horror stories that have been presented about what can happen with industrial or planned industrial property, heavy trucking, heavy industry, smokestacks belching into the sky, whatever. I would like to point out that all of the businesses across the street, which are in the same zoning, do none of that. There's no building property owner in his right mind would consider putting something like that into a residential neighborhood anyway. What exists over there right now is a karate school, a church, an apparel and silk screening company, a dentist, a post office, an IGA and gas station, and a parts manufacturer. None of those produce heavy trucking, traffic, noise, or dirt. So it can certainly be done there without all of the gloom and doom that we've been hearing. All those businesses bring jobs and taxes to the city. My uninformed opinion is that apartments do not. I did, just as an aside, I sent all this, I hope, to each of you as an email. So I'm going to skip over some things, assuming you got that. Did you?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, everybody's received that.
So I understand why this is in the best interest of the Romanelli Group. They're in business to make a profit, and this certainly would do that for them. I don't believe it's best for Sunbury. Council, of course, can have their say in this matter. I don't think it does enough benefit to the community to turn that into apartments than it does with the negatives. And I think we can realize just as much benefit by using that last little bit of property near the center of town for more center of town, so to speak, an expansion of what we have here already. This item I would like to focus on for a moment applies mainly to what I perceive as the property value to my building and the other businesses. there is nothing right now to prevent in the future the property along Granville Street, which is currently owned by NPA, but is also part of this rezoning request, to become apartments as well. If any of their plans fall through in the future, if they have to sell the land, it could suddenly become apartments also. And that, I think, would be extremely bad for us. So I don't know if that needs to be part of this whole rezoning, and if so, why? Because they can do the industrial stuff or the commercial stuff that's on the current drawings without a zoning change, I'm pretty sure. Don't know how close I'm getting to my time, but
It's about 3.
Getting the hook. So I already hit on this, but I'm going to say it again. This is the last parcel of land near Town Square that can be developed into shops and businesses, which will benefit everybody. I just want to say real quickly that apartment residents, despite some of the statements that have been made by I guess some consultants, I don't know who exactly it was, are not necessarily rooted in Sunbury. They're more usually temporary or a couple of years and then they're on. I consider these apartments to be more Intel related, where they're going to be workers who are not even working in Sunbury, specifically because there aren't that many places to work in Sunbury. So I just don't understand the whole thing. And I'm sure my time is up now, but I hope you've read the rest of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Come on up. Please state your name and your address.
My name is Bill Trowbridge. I live at 2442 Common Bent. My property is directly across from where all the building will be done. I live next door to Larry's, and he's been here a couple of times. I missed the last couple of meetings due to the fact that I travel with work. My opinion is, no, I do not support industrial. I'm in the industrial business. I'm in the transportation end of it. The noise, the different things that go along with the heavy trucking, I'm not for it in my backyard, because that's basically what it'll be. Not that I'm exactly overwhelmed with apartments, but if that's where this goes, that's where this goes. My personal opinion is it stays green space, or we develop it into parks or baseball fields or something like that. But again, that's not what's on the table tonight. So I just wanted to state that if there's any questions, being the property owner that's adjacent to this project, be happy to answer them. But I guess I'm definitely against anything industrial going in there. We're out there quite a bit early in the morning on our back porch. We hear the post office delivery between 4:50 and 5:20 every day. And we hear the building across from the post office that has a lot of manufacturing going on in those tractors and trailers in and out of there day and night, you know, whenever they make their delivery. So having that close to my backyard, I'm not a favor of it. There is other businesses that could go in there. But again, overall, that's just my opinion. I just want to make sure you heard my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other visitors that would like to speak this evening? All right. Go on to committee reports. Probably, let's see. I don't know how many committees would have met between our last meeting with the holiday. Mr. Ghost, do you have any committee reports?
Yes, I do have one here. We did have a fire board meeting. Let's see, I believe that was on the 17th. I have the full report here. I'm going to pass it out to you for you all to keep. I have my own copy. Besides the normal financials that we discussed in the chief's report, there was also discussion about trying to find a new fire station location. Still working on that. So that remains pending.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ghost.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Grumman?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Capel?
Nothing here.
Mrs. Cooper?
We did have a zoning meeting, but I'm gonna have my report next week.
Okay. Nothing. Okay, nothing. Mr. Ned. Okay, yeah, I was gonna tail on to zoning.
Oh, well, go
Let's
ahead.
do a combo. Next
Okay,
week.
next week.
We'll pass the mic back and forth.
Okay,
All right, sounds good. Actually, we should probably hit on a couple things.
go ahead.
Kinder Crossing,
You light up.
Kinder Crossing, passed zoning last week. This is after, I think, a 3-month window. They went through a public hearing in August, I believe. These are townhomes and I'll call them patio homes, but some of the homes are probably going to be a little larger than patio homes. An extension of Kintner Parkway. Eventually it will connect onto Cheshire Road and Sunbury Parkway. I want to commend the developer for really working on architectural standards, landscape buffering, and taking the future Sunbury Parkway into consideration. We had Mr. Barry Bennett presented an informal plan, two informal plans, probably very preliminary, but potential expansion on the PJ's footprint and then also on his existing industrial property. And then we had Cutler Real Estate, which owns Golden Eagle Storage, looking to do an expansion in the rear portion of that. Hitachi asked, it's adjacent to Hitachi Astemo and the mini storage location. And the big focus was around landscape buffering and aesthetics. They already had fire department approval. We did pass that. We did because it's already zoned and that was a development plan brought forward. So we should be pending legal and engineering review, seeing that in the near future at City Council. There were two other issues that we heard and I can't recall.
I thought there was only one other issue. There was a home business that just increased what he's doing. I thought there was 4 total. I think you named 3.
Is that it?
Patriot Tackle was the.
Patriots.
Okay. Great. All right, that's it. And we have police.
Done for next week.
There we go. All right, we're on to the police report, which was provided by Officer Whiteside. Also want to say thanks to Officer Casey back there. Hello. Thanks for being here tonight. Chief's helping his mother-in-law move this evening, and they've been really working hard on collective bargaining lately. I do want to call out specifically number 4, collective bargaining. The city got the final draft over to the FOP today. I think that should be distributed to officers for a vote in the very near future. I'd love to have that voted on and approved by the bargaining units prior to our meeting next week, and where we will see it for the first time next week. And if anybody would like to see that final draft, we can get that to you. And it'd be great if we could pass that on the 7th. There's a lot of pre-work that Dana and I'll say our HR staff, that is really just Steve.
Where's Manhattan?
Need to administer just with different pay and benefits and comp time calculations and things like that. We need to make sure are set up in our payroll system. So we're forecasting that may be up for emergency language next week. That's all I have at this point. Anything else for committees, police, administrator report?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to touch on 3 things in my report, which was provided earlier. I wanted to mention that we've responded to a dam inspection report. Our reservoirs are considered dams. They're actually considered Class A dams, which is the highest rating of dams. That report we got back earlier this year. And once we had it, Brad started to work on some of the repairs that needed to be done. Things like we had someone come in and seal all the concrete structures properly to prevent additional deterioration of the concrete. They repaired a sinkhole. They removed trees and scrub from the inside bank and some bare spots. We also, during that time, we had installed the level control windows to draw down the reservoir to the 5 foot of freeboard. Freeboard is the distance between the top of the dam, which is where people walk and fish, and the water level. So those worked properly when they were here. It was almost 2 years ago. We didn't have those in, and they noticed and pointed out that we had too much or not enough freeboard. So that's working good. We provided documentation of what we've done and some pictures, and they're reviewing our response to them. I wanted to mention the barn fire and just Brad coming in. They had to do water shuttles. So, when you're filling tankers, some of that water can slosh around, and we were getting some flash freeze issues on around one of the hydrants on High Street that they were using, but also a couple areas out in the township. They asked him to, since we had our salt right there, to go out and spread salt so that they can continue to work safely and that people could travel the road safely. And that was, I appreciated his response to that. And finally, I was driving Rainbow Street in the area to the north where a Columbia Gas contractor had come in to do a main repair. They milled it last week. They have gotten it paved. So it's close, but it's done. And I'll answer any questions you might have.
Great update, Steve. Anything for Mr. Piles? All right, we're on to the engineer's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I will do a full report for next week's meeting. I did have one update, though, the Fallen Heroes Trail. We received bids on that. Actually received good bids. Our cost estimate was $239,780. Bids range from $190,000 to $288,000. Low bidder was the Facemeyer Company, $190,645.31. And there's a ordinance in your packet for approval. So we're ready to go on that project. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we are on to resolutions. We have none. We're on to ordinances, third readings. Ordinance number 2022.44. An ordinance approving the application of Romanelli Sunbury Group LLC and NPA Commercial Property LLC to rezone approximately 13.22 plus or minus acres of property along the south side of West Granville Street and bifurcated by Sunbury Meadows Drive from planned industrial district to planned commercial district pursuant to the City of Sunbury zoning code. I've asked Engineer Hall to maybe recap what's changed over the past couple of weeks. There were some fluid items. And we had resident feedback, we had developer feedback, applicant feedback, and a lot of questions being asked by council members. So if Mr. Hall wouldn't mind recapping where we are right now.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I'll go over the summary of changes since the planning commission approval. Just start out by saying that every change that you're about to hear has been a positive change. I think it's made this development better. So I'll start with that. If you go to page 55 of your packet, the first changes will be the development text changes. Items 6, 7, and 8 basically were those changes. First one was a 10-foot temporary construction easement on the east side of the development. If you look in your packet, that is shown on page 58 of the packet. It's just a strip that we're going to need within that pavement setback area to actually construct the Fallen Heroes Trail. So the developers have been kind enough to work with us on a temporary easement for that section. Sub-area B architecture was modified slightly. Basically just calling out the percentages of brick for the apartment, and I'll actually read that section just so it's clear. With the exception of doors, windows, garage doors, gutters, downspouts, eaves, and overhangs, the clubhouse in sub-area B will be 75% brick, with the remainder being cementitious siding, like a hardy board or a fiber board type siding. And then part 2 of that is the multifamily buildings will be 40 to 50% brick on all building facades facing Sunbury Meadows Drive and all front elevation facades of the building. So the fronts and the parts facing Sunbury Meadows Drive, with the remainder being a cementitious siding. So that was the change to sub-area B architecture. The other item 8 there in the zoning text is the new community authority, which will be for sub-area B, the apartments. That'll be a $4 million charge over 20 years. That is a change to the development text. The other changes are in the exhibits, which everybody should have a hard copy of those exhibits in front of you. If you look to exhibit D2, we've indicated a couple potential locations for crosswalks on Sunbury Meadows Drive. And that'll be a final decision as part of the engineering construction drawing process, but just noting that these are two potential locations on the development plan. Excuse me. But there was a building location on the west side. If you recall, it was discussed at the second reading. So as you're looking at the development plan on Exhibit D2, that the final building arrangement is shown on that plan. Next item was the trash compactor was removed and replaced with 4 dumpster locations. So if you look at the development plan, you can see those 4 dumpster locations on D2. And then if you go back to Exhibit G9, you can see what the enclosures would be around each one of those dumpsters. And then the final change, if you go to Exhibit G12. And it's the southern buffer, just showing a line of sight cross section between the patio homes and the apartment buildings, indicating the mounding and fencing and landscaping that would occur to provide some privacy to both buildings. So that's shown there in cross section, and there is a 8-foot tall vinyl fence exhibit photograph shown there in the lower part of that page. We'll work through the final look of that. I know the one exhibit had some blue in it. This is all white, so I think that'll be a final it's part of the construction drawing process. You know, we'll tweak the exact look of that fence, but that's a example of what that fence may look like. So really the thing to focus on here is the height and the line of sight cross section for privacy purposes.
That final result too, Wes, is pursuant to the input by the residents. Is that correct? The residents' input.
Yes.
Basically helped come to that agreement, right?
Several residents were consulted that live at Common Bend, right? And I believe that covers the major changes.
Okay. If I could ask Mr. Breen just to speak to, since this plan has changed, albeit for the better, if you could just explain the charter requirements in terms of
So
voting.
You've had your third and final reading on this tonight. I know that the best objective is to get a final decision, one way or the other on this. So you'll be voting tonight. It's come forward to you. Normally your votes are a majority. When it comes to zoning, the charter is very specific on what you as council are required to do or not do. So the voting tonight, because you've changed the plan, albeit, you know, as people have said, theoretically for the better, you've changed what zoning did. So it does alter the voting requirements slightly. It requires you to have a 5 of 7 vote for approval versus a 4 of 7, a simple majority. So know that as you vote, to the extent that those votes are not achieved, then we'll talk about what happens next. But starting from that, you know, you need 5 of 7 tonight for your approval. So any questions, glad to answer them.
No questions? Did the applicant have anything you wanted to add at this point?
No, I think Mr. Hall covered everything.
Okay.
The answer questions, you or others have questions on council.
Okay.
It's been a good working relationship for the past few weeks, and we have met with residents and worked with Councilman Ghost and some of the architectural matters. Worked with Mr. Hall on some of the technical things. And Steve Hall the other day, Mayor asked if we join the community authority. He made that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to just say a few things. I wanted to thank those who showed up to each of the public hearings and all of the meetings and spoke for or against this particular development. I also want to say thank you to those who sent emails and documents, to those who I personally met with different council members and our staff and the applicant. I also want to say a sincere thanks to our staff. You don't get enough credit when things are contentious, just with keeping information flowing through both sides, both from the applicant, questions from council, and very much appreciate Steve, Wes, Mr. Bream, Dana, Daryl, everybody really aggregating that information and providing updates both ways. I'd also like to say a special thank you to Mr. Romanelli's team. Top notch, class act. Thanks for inviting us to your properties. Thank you for always following up. Even if you disagree with us, you tell us directly, and we very much appreciate that. If you disagree with a resident, it's tactful, and you always listen and you make time. So I very much appreciate that. I also want to thank Dana Donnell, who is also here. Thank you for meeting with me. Thank you for partnering with the Romanelli team. I think you've done a very nice job complementing their properties, and you've worked well together. And I don't want to understate the importance of joining NCA. That is a true dollar impact. That NCA has never been utilized for multifamily apartments. It's only been for single family residential in Sunbury. 4 mills for 20 years for each building. That is a significant dollar amount that will go directly to the schools, and very much appreciate that. And I know we asked at the 11th hour, but that's very important. Thank you. I want to just say we did listen. I think the applicant also listened as a result of the feedback that council received. Buildings were oriented differently to reduce the impact on the residents to the south. Dense landscape buffers, including 4-foot mounds, 8-foot fences. Never seen that before. Looking forward to seeing how tall that thing can get. I don't know how many trees we're planting in that landscape buffer, but you're going to have a forest in your backyard. But that's good. Reduced parking. I think we brought it down as low as we possibly could. I think we're at 1.85 units. It's about the lowest it possibly could, but it's the right thing to do given the type of units and the number of bedrooms. It's going to reduce stormwater runoff. I also want to say thanks for taking things serious like trash receptacle visibility and location. When I was at the Westerville location, I walked by a trash dumpster site. I did not even know that's what it was. I mean, it just looked like kind of a nice storage area. Thank you, Councilman Neff, for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Also, the building materials. This is going to be the highest end building materials besides probably the town hall that we have in Sunbury in terms of architectural elements. Thank you, Mr. Ghost, for all of your work, working with Mr. Romanelli and coming up with a solution that I think will provide a long-term benefit for the community. Traffic and safety, probably the number one concern that I heard from the community, by and large, not solely attributed to this particular development, but I'm glad it was because we were able to use the momentum of this particular development to start working on a speed analysis and a traffic calming strategy that I think is really going to prove to add a lot of safety benefit to Sunbury Meadows. And I think the broader community will benefit from that. We partnered with the schools closer than ever to gather factual based information to gauge the impact that apartments have on schools. The evidence was clear. This type of apartment specifically will probably produce about 12 kids for the entire school district. That might be on the high side. Whereas my house or Murray's house or any one of the houses we live in, it's about 1 unit or 1 pupil per unit on average. I'd like to think that Sunbury is a welcoming community. I believe we are, as evidenced by our population growth. 70% of the people who live in Sunbury moved here in the past 20 years. Since 2016, the Sunbury Commerce Park plan has evolved. It was initially proposed with higher density, did not initially include the commercial buildings represented in Sub-Area A. I want to highlight the commercial buildings for a moment, just to give perspective. This is 40,000 square foot of commercial space. It doesn't really, grab you when you look at the plan. I'll be the first to say that the first thing I look at is the multifamily units. But 40,000 square foot of commercial space, for perspective, is more commercial space than every single building on the square combined. 40,000 square foot is more than PNC, Urgent Care, Donato's, Sprint, PC Nights, Wits, CVS, and Barry Bennett's building combined. It's a lot of commercial space. So when I hear, hey, we want to have more commercial space than what's represented here, I'm going to tell you, there's not the demand. There are not the rooftops. There are not the people that we have to support it. So unless we want to have a bunch of vacant buildings or planned industrial sites, the argument to make the entire thing businesses does not pan out given our resident count. We're a small town. We have big ideas, but the most important thing is we have a perfect balance. I want to talk about balance for a moment. Sunbury currently consists of 78% single-family residential, 4-to-1 versus multifamily. That's not really in balance right now, right? I mean, it's not a 1-to-1, but it's the type of balance that Sunbury has wanted to achieve. And I just want to share this perspective. If you consider these 120 multifamily units here, plus Rolling Hills and Price Ponds that are rolling out right now, and will work in conjunction with this development pending passage, Sunbury will have 78% single-family homes and 18% multifamily. Perfect balance, the exact same ratio that we have today. Talked a little bit about pupil counts earlier. Won't hit on that. For me, when I look at this, we could argue point for point why this works, why this doesn't work, why it's safe, why it's not safe. What kind of people is it going to bring in? Who's going to be excluded? How's it going to affect taxes, roads, parks, everything? I'm going to take like the 60,000 foot view, like I've tried to do initially. And this balances the ecosystem of Sunbury. This is an ecosystem of housing, taxes, people, diversity, how we operate, and this is balancing that. This is, if we want to get lopsided, we would put single family homes all the way to Granville Street. We could do that. And then, you know, we're going to be putting a tax levy on the ballot every single year, just like Olentangy has forever. And I want to talk just briefly about the master plan vision statement. It calls for a variety of housing sizes that house a diverse population. Single family residential and planned industrial are considered by any land use planner incompatible uses when abutted to one another. This plan represents sound land use planning and, in my opinion, the highest and best use of the land. I do want to say a special thank you for challenging me to look at this development from your perspective. Mr. Barry Bennett, truly appreciate it. Julie Ahrens, Larry Mead, Mickey Halls, and Ed Reardon. Initially, when we discussed this, and I would say we could have been on polar opposite sides. If nothing else, I respect their opinion, and we've come closer together to see it from each other's perspective. With that said, would anybody else on council like to say anything?
Captured it all pretty well, Mr. Mayor.
You should have gone last, bro.
There's many things there, but the one thing I would add to your statement would be that how it overall fits in with the comprehensive master plan. 6-7 years ago, we completed that, and it called for mixed use, some residential and commercial, and the trail connectivity. And this accomplishes everything that's there. And it also said in there that we wanted the commercial piece pushed up to the front. That was preferred, the front of Granville Street and the parking to the rear. So that was accomplished. And it's on page 106 and 108 of the plan, if anyone wants to look at that. But, you know, it's also the gateway. It's within walkability of the square. That's also mentioned in there. And the construction piece and how it's going to look should blend in nicely with what's already on Granville as you drive from Route 3 into the square. Everything on the right is for the most part brick. And so it should be a nice entryway. So I don't know what else to say other than what you said about, boy, we've come a long way. I mean, when this first came to us in the first public hearing, I'm not sure that I would say I was for it. But with all the work that's been done, all the input from all the residents that we've had, I think we've reached a happy medium.
Well said. Would anybody else like to speak?
Yeah, just real quick. I don't know if it'll be real quick, but I'll try to make it real quick. So, done a lot of listening over the last several months, and I also echo what a great process this has been from the residents, from the builder, from staff, from the council, from the zoning committee, as far as hearing voices, compromising, communicating has been a really thorough and fluid process. So I really appreciate being a part of that and thankful for that. And there's been a lot of discussion already today and previously about, the school aspect and the traffic aspect, and they're all being addressed or have been addressed. But the one thing, if everyone will allow me, I was going to try to memorize it, but then I realized I can't memorize more than 3 words. So I'm going to read this, and I'm going to read from the perspective of being a lifelong resident and really what it means for the small town feel, because I think one of the overall themes that we heard was we're going to lose that small town feel if we start to have, apartments come in here. So if everyone will bear with me, I'm going to read this again, just coming from my perspective. But, many of us moved here for the small town feel. That's why we're here. But for some background, I'm a lifelong resident of the area. I was born 49 years ago on Plum Road. I remember there being no stoplights from Sunbury all the way to Old Westerville. The Nestle plant was making smells. The IGA was actually off of Harrison Street, which was the only grocery store in town. 36 and 37 out the freeway had a Phillips 76 gas station owned by my friend's family, which was really the only thing going on out there. That is until McDonald's moved in and changed our lives. We've all heard about Miller's Farm. My brother worked on Miller's Farm with her son, Mark. I graduated from Big Walnut with a class of around 160 students. I think that number is up around 300 now. My kids are 4th generation Big Walnut graduates. As you can imagine, I've seen a lot of change over the years. And each time something new has been built or come into the community, the same conversation is basically had by the residents, and that is, we're going to lose that small town feel. When the plaza came in, the houses, Jersey Mike's, Napa, Dollar General, and those aren't even the original stores, or even the building of Kroger Plaza, that was going to bring in people from surrounding areas that we just didn't want, the unsavory people. The need for more schools was a sure sign that growth was out of control. My neighborhood in which I live in, Sunbury Meadows, was opening the floodgates to new development. I've even had my own sister who lives here in Sunbury give me a hard time about losing the small town feel, which I've shamed her for that, but I'm joking. And, and on. Each time when the concern that Sunbury was losing a small town feel, in the year 2000, Sunbury had an estimated population of less than 3,000 residents. And today that's over 7,000 residents. Each time someone moving in wanting that small town feel. So it's safe to assume these 4,000 residents over the past 20 years have moved to Sunbury wanting that. So I guess I ask the question, what exactly is small town feel? Is it based on population, on the type of housing, events on the square, football games, or schools? It probably depends on who you ask, probably a combination of a lot of that. But I really propose a small town feel has more to do with the character of the people who live here, that care for their neighbor, care for their schools, and care for their community. It's those who are it is who we are and less of what we are. You see, I don't think small town feel is directly tied to population or the type of housing or the record of the football team or the 4th of July celebration. I believe small town comes from the people of Sunbury, whether it's 3,000 or 7,000. That's what I have to say.
That microphone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else like to say anything?
Not following me. Wow. No, I would like to say thank you again. I don't want to be an echo chamber up here, but thank you to everybody. Thank you to the people who came to the meeting to speak, put everything onto the radar for everybody. Challenged me in a lot of areas, being new to council, that I was able to go study the comprehensive plan, ask questions, and learn a lot throughout this process. So thank you to the developer, the applicant, for listening and going into action and responding when people would ask questions or brought up something that they best agree with or like. Thank you again to the staff, like Joe said. I mean, what John says, the small town feel comes from the heart. I mean, that's hit the nail right on the head, man. Like, thank you, everybody.
Tissue?
What's that?
You need a tissue?
Yeah, I know. It's true. It's true. I mean, with Morpsey coming up and talking about everybody, and I kept this slide out. Now the town square is so important to all of us. And this project truly, in my opinion,
complements the square and brings people to the heart of Sunbury to keep the small town feel.
So before I start talking, I'm going to quote Mark Twain. It's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak up and remove all doubt. What I have to say is, to the people that were here 2 meetings back, that were fired up and didn't want to see this happen, the last time there were that many people in this room was when we were considering building your houses. That's what happens in a community like Sunbury. One of the things that's really amazing about Sunbury is a lot of Sunbury now is a bedroom community, except in most bedroom communities, people come home in the evening, they go in the house and close their door and don't have anything to do with their neighbors. All the focus is where they work and where they drive to every day. But in Sunbury, people come home from work and they want to get involved in what's going on in the community. And the attitude that we accept those people with and we show them when they come here is what's going to make Sunbury continue to be a great place to live.
I know that it's already been said, but I just want to take my time and say thank you to the staff. I know that you guys have been working a lot, and I've personally reached out to most of you with questions, needing more information, and you all have come through, and you come through super quick, lightning quick with your responses. And I know it's not easy responding to all of us, and you can't respond to all of us at the same time. And I just wanted to say 9 times out of 10, when I end a conversation with Mr. Bream, he ends the conversation with, "You can call me anytime." So thank you for that. It means a lot.
So I guess peer pressure, I'm gonna have to say.
But no, something did occur to me as we've gone back and forth with the residents and with the people on this side of the table and with the developer, that this is really what responsible growth looks like. You know, the back and forth, figuring out what's best for the community, what's best for the schools, what the infrastructure is able to handle. I won't rehash everything that's been said more eloquently by everybody at this table, but this is why we're here. This is why we have elected officials, and this is why we value community input at the meetings. Frankly, I wish we had more community input with some of our decisions. So thank you to everybody involved.
Awesome. Anything else from staff?
Only that I will say there's an incredible amount of resilience in your group. It's been a long time ago that you came forward with this project. And we said, if you even think you want a chance at this, you need to get the frontage, that planned industrial rezoned to. Because when all that planned industrial was zoned, the houses weren't behind it. And we didn't want to leave that frontage along Granville Street planned industrial. And at that point, no one had had any contact whatsoever with the owner of that property. So to take the time and the effort to combine that, I know what that involves. And it's significant. So, you know, this is one of the older files that I have because of the demands that were made on you. So congratulations on getting it to this point tonight.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing as I was sitting here thinking about all the arguments from the residents, and they all had a lot of merit. But I think of all of them, as I kept looking at this, I think it was the traffic and the safety issue. And I just, for the record, everyone to know that we take that very seriously. Not by any means are we looking at that lightly. As Mr. Hall stated earlier, they're working on traffic calming measures. We're looking seriously at putting a crosswalk somewhere there. It might be a tabled crosswalk, but could have flashers, but it's yet to be determined. But you know, the main point there is we want that to be slowed. We want that road to be slow and safe. So, and we take that seriously. That's it.
Awesome. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we pass ordinance 2022.44.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Martin on 2022.44, second by Councilman Neff. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mayor St. John.
Yes.
7
Thank you very
yes, motion
Thank you.
passed.
We're on to ordinance number 2023.01, an ordinance to approve expenses and other expenditures of the city of Sunbury, Delaware County, state of Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31, 2023. And this is a final reading on the budget. It looks like we won't need to pass by emergency, and this is ready for approval.
Motion on ordinance 2023.01.
Motion by Councilman Capel,
Second.
second by Councilman Grumney. Discussion?
Just thank you to Dana for all her hard work and for always being available to council and answering emails and setting one-on-one appointments to talk us through all this. So that's
I
noticed and appreciated.
I
Got great staff here.
strongly second that. Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
7 yes, motion passed.
All right, we're on to first readings, ordinance number 2022.49, an ordinance awarding the contract for the Ohio Fallen Heroes Trail Phase 3 project to Face Meyer Landscaping LLC of Sunbury, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
As Wes referenced earlier, they're the lowest and best bidder. We've worked with them several times in the past, local company. Looking to get approval on this tonight. They'd like to get the clearing and final walkthrough done while weather is still good. Any questions? Myself or Wes, glad to answer them for you. So you'd need a suspension of the rules and an emergency vote as well as the ordinance vote.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules on 2022.49.
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Ghost. Discussion? Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Capel.
Yes.
I'll make a motion on the emergency.
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Ghost. Discussion? Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
7 yes, motion
Make-
passed.
I'll make a motion on ordinance number 2022.49.
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Ghost. Discussion?
I would like to add just one other item of discussion. The completion of this trail, hopefully sometime next year, will position it nicely to be connected to the trail there at Sunbury Commerce Park. And again, as I mentioned earlier, that's one of the goals of the 6-year-old comprehensive master plan, was to get that trail connection and the walkability to the preservation parks, Fallen Heroes Trail and the Out Erie Trail will all come together.
I agree. Good comment. Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Capel.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, on new and unfinished business, I'll just hit on this one briefly. I don't know that we need action tonight, but I will just lay this up. The Delaware County Emergency Management Agency, Sunbury was recently, I'll say, awarded a board position. And it's our responsibility to fill that position with an appointment. I think we wanted to discuss just how we would go, how or who we would want to fill that position with. One person that had mentioned that they were potentially interested was Chief Kovach. Chief Kovach is our fire chief. I don't believe he lives in Sunbury. He has at one point. He does represent Sunbury in a fire capacity. He's obviously has the skills and expertise. But maybe we could just briefly open it up for discussion on his potential appointment, or if we wanted to go back and to the drawing board. What are your thoughts?
I think he'd be an excellent candidate, and I think he's got the experience and knowledge that would fill right in and be a productive member of that group, so.
Good feedback.
I agree.
Anyone else have any feedback on that?
No, I would agree with that completely.
Okay. Great. So are we ready to make an appointment, or should we go back and just check, make sure you haven't got cold feet?
Better do it now.
So, yeah, you're right. They're the ones running in, aren't they?
Is there a hard and fast deadline by which this?
They have an executive committee on December 8th. And so the director called me just to say, how's that progressing? And my response was, it'll be discussed this evening.
To the extent he's got a meeting the day after the next meeting, maybe good to get it over with. That way he knows.
Has he expressed an interest in doing it?
I think you did. I think.
Okay, then, yeah, I think I'll make the motion.
Okay, let's make them, we got a motion by Dave Martin, second by John Grumney. Discussion.
How long of an appointment term is it? Do we know?
No. But we can get back to you on what their term lengths are.
Okay.
It would be a full first term, whatever the charter there.
Okay.
Enabling.
Well, let's make the motion for him to be the representative for 2023. And then beyond that, we can go again.
Great. Got an amended motion and just amended second. Mr. Grumney, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mayor St. John.
Yes.
7 yeas, motion carries.
New or unfinished business, Mr. Gross,
No, sir.
Mr. Grumney. Mr. Capel. Nope. Mr. Martin.
I just want to say this. I've been involved with zoning in Sunbury since 1999. And if there's one person that we can count on that knows he don't build junk, it's Vince Romanelli. And I'm looking forward to see what his group does with this property.
That's it. Thank you. Nothing. Thank you. Christmas on the Square this Saturday.
Mayor and council will have a float for the first time, I think. So come out and see us and enjoy. It's supposed to be nice weather, I hear.
That's great.
Chamber put in a request for that, so
Excellent.
should be fun.
Excellent.
That's good.
Anything else?
And St. Nicholas will be here.
That's right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a meeting on December 7th. Second by Damon Capel. Discussion. Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper. Yes. Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
7 yeas, we're adjourned at 8:23.
All right.
Okay.